Hey guys, welcome back to Paranormal Stories of Horror Stories of the Paranormal. I got Brad here still, and we just filmed our episode number 11, and he still wants to tell a horror story, so we're gonna let it rip right now.
All right.
Fire when ready.
All righty, man. So, well, some of y'all out there might be familiar with this story. Not everybody would be. Not a widely told one, but it is allegedly based off eyewitness testimony. This really allegedly happened, And like I said, I'm not going to get my source from this. Some of you may know. If you know, you know. I'm just going to say that. Anyhow, this story takes place in London, Ohio, from the year 1981 to 1982. A couple by the name of Keith and Diane Williams had they moved to this nice wooden type house out kind of at the edge of the woods out there in a area they lived in. They'd been married for 6 years. They were high school sweethearts, and they had a 4-year-old daughter. Yeah, 4-year-old daughter named Raven. Well, Keith, he was gone for about 12 hours out of the day every day, and he worked at a welding shop during the day, and he went to school during the nighttime, tried to get a degree in something else. But anyhow, point being, Diane was alone by herself for 12 hours out of every day. And one night she's there by herself with her and her daughter. Keith is away. She starts hearing noises outside, and she didn't think nothing of it much. I mean, being in the woods, it could be anything, an animal, you never know. Well, she kind of glanced out the window, and she sees what looks like a pair of yellow eyes off in the distance. She's thinking it's an animal. Again, nothing serious. She's cleaning up the kitchen some more, and she walks around to another window facing the same direction, and she sees the yellow eyes peering at her at eye level. She starts freaking out. So she backs into a different window in a different room, turns and sees the same eyes. It's like it was following her in her own home. So she starts trying to close the blinds, getting frantic. Next thing she knows, Keith walks in. And she's about halfway hysterical. And so she's telling Keith what's going on, and he's a skeptic. He doesn't believe her. And that kind of frustrates her. But eventually, she's on edge, but she lets it pass, right? Well, again, about a month later, Keith is gone one night again, and she's cleaning up in the kitchen just about like the last time, and once again she sees the thing staring at her right through the window again, and basically goes through the whole shebang. I mean, she noticed when she'd go into a room it would follow her, so she decides this time she's going to shut out all the lights. She's like, I'm going to even the score. Maybe I can see him and he can't see me. But it didn't matter. Any room she went to, it followed her and kept his eye on her, and she was horrified. So she crouches down. The only thing she knows to do is crouch down and call the police. And she stays out of sight, but she hears it moving around the house, whatever it was. So finally, what seemed like a lifetime, I'm sure, the police show up, and she lets them in, and she's telling them what's going on. And of course the police is like, calm down, Miss Williams, I'm gonna check the perimeter. I'll look around. Takes his flashlight, looks around, and in the middle of his search, Keith pulls up, and policeman tells Keith what's going on, and he's like, I think you've got a very nervous wife here. You might want to just keep an eye on her. So again, this starts a conflict, and her and Keith get into it again, because she's very adamant about what she saw, and he doesn't believe her. He just thinks it's her imagination, or she was halfway asleep. You know how those things go. right, so fast forward 4 months later. This time we're kind of getting towards the end of November into December. There's snow on the ground. And, well, Keith decides he wakes up early one morning. He's going to go get everybody donuts. Nice thing to do. And so he gets in his car and starts it. He's, like I said, he's still half awake. And he thinks he hears something behind his car before he starts the engine and, you know, turns the lights on. Once he does, he looks in his rearview mirror and he too sees yellow lights peering right at him through his rearview mirror. He just freaks out and gasses it backing out of the parking spot where he was at, and he hops out with his flashlight and looking all around, and he's just looking for this thing, can't find it, of course. Well, as he's showing his flashlight, he flashes it up on the house. Like I said, there's snow on the ground, snow in the house. There was a canopy that stood over the door, right, you know, the door of about 10, 12 feet. And on top of the canopy, there was snow. And on that canopy, there were large, what looked like large animal prints perched on there. Something that had been perched on there, like a gargoyle or something. Anyway, so he's still flashing that flashlight around, and then he sees the actual track prints in the snow. He puts his hand up to it. He says it's about 14 inches long and with claw marks at the end. So he don't know what to do else now. He calls his buddy Dennis up, his hunting buddy. Says, bring your rifle. So they, Dennis takes his gun and Keith takes his 30-30 rifle, and they decide to start following these tracks into the woods. They do. They go for a good while, snapping through brush, just kind of going along the path. Well, at one point, Keith hears something not that far away, but kind of maybe something that's like maybe 10 feet away, but can't see it because they're in the woods. And he kind of came to the conclusion that, you know, he started hunting whatever it was making this tracks, but whatever it was knew it, had doubled back and started tracking them instead. The hunters became the hunted. So they, you know, they still were freaking out, but they kept following the tracks. Luckily, they didn't get attacked. Lord knows why. But the tracks eventually led to a little clearing and up to this little cabin at the edge of this clearing. Footprints that walked up to a door that's shut. Animals don't walk on 2 feet and open and shut doors. So him and Dennis are outside, and Dennis is banging on the outside, like, hey, come out, we know you're in there. And Keith, after a few choice words, convinces him to abandon the mission. They're like, this is not a good idea out here with 2 guns on somebody's property. Let's get out of here now. The highway's just about half a mile this way, or however so many yards this way. So they start walking on the highway, and they start thinking, we need to find the nearest phone. I gotta call my dad, because it's not gonna look too good with 2 men walking on the highway with guns that they can't put away. So they call Keith's dad. He comes and picks them up, and he says, what y'all doing out this way? And he's like, hey, he was telling him about the cabin and the prints and everything. Keith was giving him the whole rundown, and he's like, that cabin, I think I know who lives up there. It's like, this old man that works at the tire shop down here in town. And he's like, really? So now they have an idea who the inhabitant of this cabin was. So Dennis, Keith's buddy, gets the idea to take an old tire up there so that they can go get a look at this guy. So they do. They bring it up to the manager, and, you know, manager gets the tire ready. He yells back, hey, George, got another one for you, and rolls it out back, rolls it down the way, where it comes to a stop. And Dennis and Keith are waiting so they can get a look at this guy. This man walks out and picks up the tire. And when he does, he raises his head and looks straight at Keith and Dennis. And he's got the most vivid golden eyes that Keith has ever seen. bright gold. And it's like they had a connection. It was like he sensed that those were the ones tracking him that day, or something like another like that. So he quickly goes back in, and you hear the tire pop, and then the next thing you know, you see the tire roll back out to the front for the manager to grab. He wasn't going to let the Keith and Dennis look at him again. So he gets the tire and goes on about his way. Goes back home, and Diane can see that he's had not the best day. Can see he's kind of tired and a little shaken up. And he's like, it might not be a bad idea if you get a gun here at the house. I just want you to feel safe. She's like, and she thought to herself, he's seen something. He knows something. Because now, actions speak for themselves sometimes. But anyway, point being, another 3 months down the road, Dennis calls up Keith one day. And he's like, Keith, come on, I'm going to pick you up. Let's go for a ride. So he picks him up, and they start going down the same pathway to that cabin where they were at that day. And he's like, no, I don't want to go back there. He's like, nothing's happened in these last few months. I'd like to keep it that way, kind of thing. He's like, no, that guy, George, he died. So, and I've got a deputy over here that called me up, told me about it, and said he had something to show me. So they go to meet up with the deputy, and they all go down to the cabin. And they walk in, and initially, upon walking in, you don't see anything out of the ordinary. It's just an old rundown cabin. No possessions, no TV, no nothing in there. He's like, I don't see nothing special about it. It just looks like an old beat up cabin. The deputy's like, no, you need to see this. You're not going to believe this. He takes him to a back room. Upon walking in, opening up the door, this pungent smell hits all of them. It's like wet dog. Can't mistake that smell. It's terrible. They look everywhere, and they see nothing but metal sheeting, all held together in lines by rivets. There is shackles and chains bolted to the floor, and there is scratch marks all over the walls. And they all just stood there and looked at each other in disbelief, but they kind of didn't really have a whole lot to say to each other. But Keith, as he was walking out, he was like, there's that one word, and I know all of us are thinking it, but nobody wants to say it. Werewolf. And that's the end of the story.
We just finished up with episode 11, and Brad just told us a story. We're finishing up here, and it was like a sauna in here tonight. It was just so hot.
We're still in the middle of July here, so
I'm covered, drenched in sweat.
yeah, poor James over here.
Anyway, thank you guys, and God bless, and thank you for watching and subscribing. Thank you guys.
Thank you.